A common view in popular morality is that the interests of human beings automatically take precedent over those of non-human animals. This amounts to an ethic that treats non-human animals ethically only when this does not clash with the interests, no matter how trivial, of humans. The belief holds that human beings are superior to non-human animals, and are the only morally relevant beings. It is a species bias rarely questioned, and is at the root of many atrocities inflicted on non-human animals by humans, such as the methods of factory farming and animal testing. When this bias is questioned, a popular response is that human beings are intelligent, and this makes them morally superior. In religious language, the soul is often evoked, or humankind being made in God's image. I will ignore the latter arguments, because there is no evidence to support them, only groundless assertions relying on faith. I will examine the claim that human intelligence is the justification for a human-only ethic. Is intelligence the morally relevant factor? Let's assume so and examine the logical implications of this principle. First, we realize that not all humans possess actual intelligence greater than all non-human animals. There are certainly some pigs and dogs smarter than some severely mentally disabled humans and newborn babies, so an ethic based entirely on intelligence would not include these mentally deficient humans. Since the principle of human intelligence was invoked to defend a human-only ethic in the first place, this is probably not acceptable for proponents of the view. Therefore, the principle must be altered in order to include these mentally deficient humans. Perhaps it is not actual intelligence, but rather genetic proximity to normal humans, or the potential of babies to become intelligent. I will not consider the possibility that they be included in virtue of their being humans, because that is merely circular reasoning. The intelligence principle was invoked to defend a human-only ethic, and cannot itself be defended by appealing to species. However, this adjustment to the principle of intelligence begins a regress. The same logic that allows mentally deficient humans into our moral consideration likewise allows all apes into our moral consideration, due to a high degree of genetic proximity. Since the difference is one of degree, and we cannot invoke the species line, we would struggle to find a reason to leave out the other apes. Certainly there are also some apes more intelligent than some humans, so their inclusion is doubly convincing. This reasoning applies to all mammals as well, since the difference is still only one of degree. The principle of genetic similarities will carry moral consideration onto all animals as well. And finally, it will apply to all life. So, we see that the defense of a human-only ethic based on intelligence faces a dilemma. Either mentally deficient humans are morally irrelevant, or the tree of life in its entirety is morally relevant. Neither of these options stays true to the principle's original intent of defending an ethic of all and only humans. It might be argued that because we can identify the genetic defects responsible for mental deficiencies, we can assume that free from those defects mentally deficient humans would be much smarter than they actually are. This may be true, but we can also identify the genetic differences between humans and other non-human animals, as well as the differences in the brains of most creatures responsible for the difference in intelligence. Were it not for those differences, intelligence levels would be closer. This does not change the fact that neither mentally deficient humans nor dogs have the intellectual capacity of normal adult humans. It seems no matter how you cut it, a human-only ethic defended by intelligence will consistently fail to include all humans and only humans. The tree of life horn of the dilemma is undesirable for several reasons, namely that it makes it difficult to justify the medical practice of eradicating infectious diseases, which are, after all, living organisms. Likewise, it makes it difficult to justify eating. The dilemma is either too broad or too narrow. In case it is not clear why this regress obtains, consider the following argument. Premise 1. If a being is genetically similar to a normal adult human, then it is morally relevant. Premise 2. All of your ancestors are genetically similar to a normal adult human. How could they not be? You are living proof of this premise. Premise 3. All other descendants of your ancestors are genetically similar to a normal adult human. Conclusion. Therefore, all other descendants of your ancestors are morally relevant. Since all living things share a common ancestor, moral relevance extends to all living things. You could demonstrate this conclusion by following your chain of ancestors back 250,000 generations, at which point you will have arrived at the common ancestor of humans with chimpanzees and bonobos. Call this the lineage of moral consideration based on human genetics. Before we go any further, let's examine what it is exactly about intelligence that is supposed to be morally relevant and unique to all humans. Which aspect of human intelligence is supposed to be morally significant? To use. Other animals demonstrate this ability. Language. Other animals communicate, albeit not in as complex a fashion as humans, but what could possibly be morally relevant about language? Are humans with an inability to speak and understand language excluded from moral consideration? Planning. Other animals demonstrate this ability, some to a greater extent than humans. Logic. This is perhaps what someone means when he says human intelligence. Is it possible to defend this claim? Modern computers are much better at logic than any human. Would it follow that computers are more worthy of moral consideration than any human? Also, no human is always logical, and many are almost never logical. Remember, whichever aspect one chooses, it must be limited only to humans, and must be possessed by all humans, in order to defend a human-only ethic. Otherwise, there is no justification for a human-only ethic. If this aspect cannot be demonstrated, then we are similar to many other creatures in morally relevant ways, and are behaving very immorally by excluding them from our moral consideration. In Part 2, we will consider a different, perhaps better, foundation for our ethical system.